Hey folks, happy Wednesday live stream. It's been a really nice day outside. It feels like spring is almost here, so I'm getting really excited. It feels like it makes sense to be starting seeds on a day like today, so that's what we're gonna do. I have actually so much to let you know about. Next week, the live stream will be outside of my kitchen and with John learning about tapping maple trees, how to do that. So tomorrow, Thursday, on my turn, you will be able to reserve your maple tree tapping kits if you want to do it at home by yourself. It's a little bit, even though it's so warm, it's a little early to start tapping, but those will be available starting tomorrow to reserve. And remember that you only have Tuesday and Thursday to pick them up. So if you want one of those for the maple season and you want to have it ready, make sure that you reserve it in the next 2 to 3 days starting tomorrow. That's going to include a pail, a lid, a spout or a spigot, whatever you want to call it, a tap. And we also have drill bits available if you need to borrow something like that to drill your tree. So keep an eye out for that on my turn. Next Wednesday, I'm going to be with John and we're going to be tapping a tree, showing you how to do it, kind of talking about the science of that and how it works and how to have a really successful year and what our plans are. And then March 4th, I am going to be doing a workshop with the Guelph Seed Library on winter sowing in containers. It's a really unique method of starting certain types of seeds outside. Basically, you get a jug or a recycled spinach container, something like that. You fill it with soil. You put a bunch of seeds in there and you leave it outside and it'll actually come up as early. It's like a little greenhouse effect and it'll come up really early in the spring and you just kind of leave it there, make sure it's watered. And it's just a really great way if you have limited space to start a bunch of seeds outside. I know that I run out of room. Finally have all of my lights up, which I'm super pumped about. But that's just room for, 4 or 5 trays at most. So I am going to run out of room. So this is a great way. If you want to sign up for that, reach out to Susan on our Facebook page or Facebook group or email the tool library and we will get you registered. It's $10 and you actually get a jug, soil, and some seeds to do your own or start one off. And then from there I'll talk about all the different kinds of things that you can grow that way. So that's kind of fun. I know I already have a bunch that I want to try. At least try. I've got some older seeds that I don't mind using the entire container's worth in like a jug and see if it actually sprouts outside. What else? Oh, and finally, I'll recap all of this at the end so you guys remember, but for those people who only stick around for a little bit, one last thing. March 13th, I want to start a hatch-along, which is where a group of people team up and we start all of our chicken eggs at the same time, which will be March 13th, meaning that our chicks will hatch on Easter weekend, which I thought would be kind of fun in not supposed to be like a religious thing or anything like that, but it's just kind of fun sign of spring. Hopefully the weather is going to be really different by then. I can't believe that if we started some eggs already, it'd be April. Oh my goodness. So yeah, if you're interested in that, keep your eyes peeled on Backyard Caring on here. I'm going to announce it. And we actually have 2 incubator kits available at the Guelph Tool Library. I have them right now. So if you really want to do it, you don't have an incubator, you have a Guelph Tool Library membership, I will set you up with the incubator kit and you can join us. So keep your eyes peeled for eggs if you want to participate and set your eggs on March 13th with the Guelph Tool Library, and we'll meet once a week and talk about our eggs and see how they're doing. And then when they start to hatch, we'll share that and see how many chicks we end up with. So yeah, that's all the information section of today. I have a bunch of stuff today I want to do. We'll see if we can get through it all in a reasonable amount of time. So the main premise of this mini workshop is winter sowing. I'm ready to split up these lettuce, so that's something I want to do at some point. I think I'm going to put them in that container. I've got a bunch of things kind of around ready to go. I couldn't get my printer working, so I wanted to do my labels for my peppers and get those started primarily. but I couldn't get my printer working, so I'm gonna have to write on these old-fashioned style with a Sharpie and then do my technique later on when I get a chance. But yeah, so I want to talk about a few things before we get into the seeds, I guess. That'd be the best place to start. I've got some soil or some potting soil medium, seed starting medium to start. I've done a bit of a custom mix here that's got some peat. It's got some regular seed starting mix, which is usually just a mix of peat and something else. Perlite, I think that's why I'm like rubbing my nose. I just like mixed it all up and I'm like stuffed up from it. But got a couple other things in here. And then I crushed up a handful or two of rabbit manure, fresh from the resident rodent over here. Nice and fresh. And that is just to act as a little bit of a nutrition for these seedlings, which are going to be in these little pots for quite a long time, because most of these cannot even be planted until June 1st. That's usually when I go crazy and plant things. Up until then, we can still get frost, so I like to wait. So my soil is ready to go in this bin, something I was going to use last week just to house them. It's waterproof. It can get dirty. I can clean it. Fits in the sink. I've pre-moistened this. I might actually add a bit more water to this. It's a bit dry. And the reason I like, well, there's some moisture in here, but I definitely can add some more, so I might have to step off and do that. But the reason I like to do it pre-moistened before I pack it into any kind of container or something like that is because when you end up watering it, the volume really changes. So it's just nicer to have like a already moist medium. You can plant the seeds right in and just do like a little bit of watering. So yeah, that is ready to go. I have these trays that I'm gonna recycle from last year that I think had probably flowers in them. So I've got a tray, a regular potting tray. You can get these anywhere. You can get them online. You can get them at Canadian Tire. You can get them at TSC, aka PV Mart now. I like to go for thicker ones. I think in the future I would buy some that are guaranteed to last many years. I have one or two outside still that are like, they'll last for many more years. I hate the flimsy ones. Don't buy them from the dollar store. I've done it. I've had to do it when I'm like last minute. Okay, I don't want to spend that much. I need one more tray. But they don't last more than a season. They like disintegrate. I don't know why or how, but they just, you know, they just really wear down. And once you put them in the light, the UV just destroys them. So anyways, I'm reusing this 24 pack. I have 3 of these, but this is all I'm going to do. I'm going to start with this today. For my peppers, I'm going to do some pellets inside here. I saw another Instagrammer do this and I love her garden and I'm going to try this method. Last week I was kind of dissing the use of pellets, and I'll show you like these, because I think a lot of people misuse them, but they can be used if you're like on top of things. So I'll explain that in a little bit. But for now, peppers are going to go in here. I'm not going to fill this up with soil. I'm just going to use the pellets in here, and I'm going to pop my label on the side and just write kind of a brief name on the side and then fix them later. But that's how I'm going to do my peppers. They're going to go in this tray. I've got some room on this end. I have a bunch of pots like this, but they're pretty precarious. So just in the interest of doing stuff today, like waving my hands around for no reason. Oh, I don't know if I'll ever get good at this live streaming, but I've got these pots ready to go that kind of just fit in a group of 4. And I think I have 2 more outside, so that kind of works. But this is where I'm going to put some of the other things I'll be starting today. Some of the things I mentioned, I don't have all of these. I don't need to start all of them, but I will talk about them all. Was asparagus, parsnips, onions, and peppers, I think. Is that everything that I had mentioned? I don't know. But we're going to start, I'm going to start some onions. I'm going to start maybe 1 variety of onion or 2. I'm going to, and leeks. I'm going to start some leeks because I would like to do a row of leeks. I actually really, really like leeks. And I think it'd be nice to have some. It's not something that's often donated, and a lot of my seedlings are going to the Grow Garden. And a lot of that food gets donated, so I think it's important that, mix it up. Don't just grow plain stuff for donation, but it's stuff I will also eat. So, yeah, I've got a lot to play with here. I also have some super old parsley seed this doesn't just look like parsley, but we're going to find out. Some super old parsley seeds, and to start a whole bunch, kind of like I did the lettuce. So that's the other task I'm going to do. I am going to fill up one of these with as many of the lettuces as I can. But otherwise, I'm going to fill these up, and I'm going to kind of mass plant a grouping of seeds in here. And then if I have to later on, split them up. Onions especially are really easily split up. So I'm going to do, a sprinkling in here. Hopefully they all come up and they kind of outgrow the space, and the onions can actually be divided like garlic. They're highly robust once they get going. I'm not going to be starting asparagus today. I do have some seeds. I seem to be missing my root vegetables and at least another container of seeds, but sometimes that's because I pull them and then they end up like in some other container thing that I don't know. I don't put them back in my organization trug there, but I'll keep my eyes peeled for some asparagus seeds. They take a little while to germinate. They take a little longer. That's why you start them early. And then they grow pretty fast, and they grow quite tall and spindly, so you need really good quality light if you're going to be starting them indoors early. The asparagus if it gets too tall and too leggy, it's ruined. So it'll grow quite tall. You want it to stay as short as possible, but it'll go right up to the light, essentially. It won't be very thick, and then it will branch out and kind of look like a feathery fern type thing, like a mini asparagus plant. And then they can be put outside, but they take about 5 years to mature to the size that you maybe would want to harvest from, maybe 4 years. So if you want to do, it's expensive, and asparagus seeds are usually pretty affordable. If you want to start your own asparagus, just be aware that you need really, really good light. Otherwise you'll ruin them all. I've done that where I didn't realize, and they got kind of spindly and they were kind of wrecked because by the time I brought them outside, they were very weak and would get knocked over. Parsnips, they take a very long time to germinate. I couldn't find my seeds, but very much like carrots, we don't want to do too many too densely because they do not like to be disturbed once those roots have started to form, but you can mass plant them. I know what some people do is they do tiny plugs, and I might show a picture of that later on in the week on the Backyard Caring page to show you what I would start that in, or maybe what I would start lettuce in if I didn't start it like this. I can actually pop him in. We've got roots coming out the bottom, which is pretty awesome. These are that's the perfect stage. Then I know that there's actually roots going the full length of this. So that'll be fun to break apart in a little bit here after this. But yeah, parsnips, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to sprinkle them in one later on, or even in little things, and then they need to be transplanted eventually early spring. So yeah, let's get started on these containers where I am going to do some kind of mass planting. I need to get some labels. My Sharpie ready to go. We'll move that over here. Make sure you guys can see everything that's going on. I'm working at a weird height, so hopefully this works. Well, this will be a perfect angle to show you what I'm going to do with the lettuce, but for now, I need to get a little, there's a little bit of water. I need to get a little bit of water in here and make it a little bit moister, so just bear with me for 1 second. All right, gonna drizzle in some water into my growing medium, my potting medium. I recommend this if you have an old Rubbermaid, or this is a little dish bin, or even a proper seed one, whatever it is. If you're starting your own seedlings this year, get one of these, especially if you have little kids who want to help out and maybe would make a huge mess if they didn't have something to do it in. Just say, hey, work within this little tub and fill up the pots. That you can definitely have your kids do this part if they like getting messy. But when I've kind of mixed up the soil like this, it's pretty much fluffy to ready to go. I'm not gonna like super press that in there, but you can really quickly fill things up, and that's ready to plant because it's pretty much moist. And when I water that, it'll absorb right away because it's already moist. Got a bigger container. And for these guys, for the onions, I'm only gonna fill up to about, I'm gonna leave an inch at the top. I'm not pressing this in super hard at all. I'm just kind of evening up the top. But I've left about a solid inch, maybe a little less. I don't want to go all the way to the top because these are going to expand the space and they might even lift the soil up as they grow. So I'm only going to go that far. I'm going to do the same thing for the leeks, even though they come up way thinner than onions do. I've got 2 or 3 kinds of onions. Now, when I say onions, I don't mean like bunching or cutting onions or scallions. I mean, you can start scallions, but I'm talking about large onions. So red onions, sweet onions, Vidalias. I've got some red, kind of generic onions, large format. And I'm going to really put quite a few in here and divide up as I need, because I really only need like a decent row of these. So even if you put 12, 15, 16 seeds, that's 16, 15 onions. So if I do 2 of these, you know, maybe 30 onions of one variety, I mean, that's a lot. So something to think about. 1 seed, 1 onion. All right. And then this one, what else am I going to start? I was thinking about maybe starting some thyme seeds as well, just because they do take quite a long time. And they need to be really close to the surface. So I might sprinkle on some vermiculite or something like that on the surface. Again, I'm leaving a decent amount of space. I'm not going all the way to the top. This is something I might do all the way to the top with flowers, tomatoes, peppers, go all the way to the top. But these guys, I'm going to leave some room to breathe. Fill up this one. I don't know. We'll see what we end up doing. I have at least, I could do all of these in onions, but I think I'm going to do leek, an onion, and I don't know. We'll see what you guys, if you guys have any opinion on what you want me to do. Eventually, all of these need to get started. I have more grow lights and space, but I do end up starting quite a few in kind of a greenhouse setting on my deck. So I have enough room. I also struggle with keeping them away from the chickens. So there's that. Before we leave this soil, I could probably add even more water, but that's okay. I'm gonna fill up, or try to fill this up. Show you how I would kind of do that. This has holes in the top, so if you're not doing it over a surface, you're gonna lose a lot of the soil. Nice and loose. I'm not pressing down at all. I'm just filling, and they'll go down when they're watered. So actually I did press that one a little bit hard, but that's okay. I'm being really careful to not get all the soil out the back. Sometimes it's nice to do a lot of these at once, but I don't recommend doing more than you need for that one day that you're going to fill. Definitely, whatever you're going to start, do it at the first task that you're going to do before you start your seeds, is get your containers ready. Don't do both at the same time. Not only is that inefficient, but you want to keep your hands nice and clean after this process when you start to handle the seeds. At least I think so. So you don't if, for example, you need to put some seeds back, they're clean. If you rub soil on them, you're just introducing maybe a way for that seed to rot. So we're going to avoid that. This is where the lettuce is going to go. That I'm going to split up after we do some... Actually, maybe we'll do that next because, like I said, I'm going to keep my hands clean for the seed part. This is a little bit tricky now, because this is a little bit bigger than this container. This. Running out of soil. But that's, you know, I calculated well, I guess. This is the amount I wanted to use. Now, I am going to use pellets for the peppers in a minute as well. Like I said earlier, I was against them, and I still kind of am for most applications. You know, they do have a little skin on them that eventually biodegrades, but it's very delicate, so definitely don't want to be moving your plants around. They are just made of crushed peat, so there's no nutrients, and they get very dry, so you need to stay on top of making sure that those are watered. So they can be a little bit challenging for beginners, even though they're cheap, and they seem great. I'm going to try this method. I'm usually really attentive to my seedlings, so I'm not terribly worried that I'm going to neglect them to that degree. All right. Just having trouble with that angle for filling the middle, but there's holes in the middle of these, so trying not to let too much on the surface get in the way here. These might be a little bit too full, but that's okay. Just for the lettuce. This is honestly overkill for the lettuce, but we're gonna do it. Placing them back in there. Make a soft bed for what I'm about to do next, but I'm gonna remove, the lettuce is so delicate. If I crush this, they're all done, because they really only have 2 or 3 leaves, or sorry, 4 or 6 leaves so far. Okay. Ooh. Okay, I did kind of a plain potting soil mix, but I got them out. How many weeks old are these guys now? 3 weeks old? About 2.5, 3 weeks old. And basically, premise of this is I'm gonna divide everybody up. Kind of want to stand up for this. I think I'm gonna reverse. Whenever I'm doing this kind of thing, I take over the whole kitchen table in order to accommodate this. But I'm gonna make quite a big space for this guy to go in. I'm gonna turn, you guys can kind of see what I'm doing again, and I'm gonna transplant him in. So this, I like this method. It's a little bit labor intensive, but I mean, what isn't about gardening necessarily labor intensive if you're just doing your own? If you're an industrial farmer, this is too labor intensive. But it saves you space in the beginning, especially when there's like that 2 to 3 week window before the last frost, when you want to pack and get as much stuff started indoors as possible, knowing that you can bring everything outside pretty soon. The reason it's nice too to start things in little pots and in sections is because if you're still building a garden, as opposed to maintaining a plot that's like flat ground that you always plant in, you might need some things and you might want to put them in very specific places, and it's not really conducive to starting seeds in the ground. So, or you have very limited space. This is enough lettuce for like an entire balcony's worth. It's enough lettuce for a whole family, and you know, I like to start lettuce every week, or at least every 2 weeks, so that I have a constant supply. So, you know, a little bit goes a long way, but for lettuce, it's more of an age thing. All right, 2. Turn it more this way so you can see. Now, I mean, I shouldn't have to tell some people how to do this, but I'm gonna work my way across so that I'm not actually interfering with anybody and risking damaging these, because if the main taproot, which is like very exposed and available there, gets damaged, then it's over for these little guys. It's not necessary to put rabbit poop in your seedling mix. A lot of people usually, just to fend off pests or mold or anything like that, they usually just use for like liquid fertilizer, which you can get in the form of compost tea, which we'll talk about this year at some point. or like fish aquarium water is a great one. That is free to some people. Might be a reason to get a pet fish. That water can be like highly nutritious for plants. It's kind of a free, as you have to do your water changes every week, free way to get some nutrients. Wow, some of these lettuces, these are from Wild Garden Seeds, one of my favorites. Well, I may have messed this guy up. I think he'll live. Really unique looking colors. Let's see if I can, why doesn't it want to focus? But this is really neat. We'll see if it'll focus closer. It doesn't want to. Too bad. But anyways, these lettuce are, it actually is very robust. Wondering if that's some kind of different kind of lettuce. Maybe like a romaine. It's just not as floppy as some. These are in really good shape, these seedlings. Some of them are a little bit curved, but I think that's normal given there's quite a few in here, and I could have done this a week ago. But I am just splitting these apart. Now, I won't bore you with this the whole time, but it is pretty fun to do while listening to music. You know, so a lot of these are head lettuce, so it is good to let them get some space. But if they're just a cutting lettuce, they really don't need more space than this permanently. So that's kind of fun. All over the place. All right. Don't want to be boring here. These are kind of floppy. You just kind of gently let it come out. You don't want to force anything. You don't really want to cut anything because they really don't have a lot of root to them at all. It's okay if some of the root at the bottom comes off. They will grow back. But I've got a lot of unique colors that I'm really happy with. We will keep following the journey of these lettuce seedlings. That's for sure. Here's a darker one. Really cool. Now, if, I mean, obviously I would label these if they were different varieties and I wanted that, but they're all going to be consumed. I'm not going to let any of these go to seed. There's another freckly one. So I don't need to label this, but I could label this whole tray as lettuce, and I think that's important if you're a beginner or if you have people in your family who are trying to learn. It is important to label things because I've definitely completely forgotten what something was and had to wait. Okay. I think this one got broken. That's too bad, but the rabbit will eat it. Okay, I'm going to stop this for now and move on to, I still have all of those to go. I think I'll have just enough with a couple extras and I'll feed them to the rabbit. I'm going to feed them to her right now. She actually doesn't like when I put food down there. She has to like discover it at her own will. So we'll turn it right back into compost for me. Fertilizer compost combo. Okay, next steps. So there's our lettuce seedlings. They look pretty good. They look a little floppy facing different directions, but give that 24 hours or less under light, and they will straighten right up where they need to be. I might need to push some of these down a little further, I'm realizing. But that's pretty good. This is a good way to save space. Sometimes when you start seedlings, if I were to start the lettuce in here, I'd have a bunch of extra in each hole, and I would have to either take out that whole bunch and separate them or cut one off. This way, whatever I say hatches, but whatever sprouts, I just use it and put it in its own container, and nothing is wasted, essentially. Yes, I just, there's 2 extras there that I gave to the rabbit, but for the most part, none of it's wasted. If you wanted to put them all in containers, you could. So I'm going to flip this over and show you some onions, sowing. Now the rule of thumb with planting seeds is you want to go about the width or height of the seed below the surface. So the larger the seed, the deeper down it needs to go. When you have really tiny seeds like cabbage, kale, brassicas, things like that, they really don't need to go down very deep. So in terms of creating a well, what I sometimes like to do, I'm going to use this guy, actually some peat that I'm going to sprinkle in a minute, is I'm just going to rough up the surface a little bit so that when I sprinkle the seeds in, they're going to kind of fall into place. You don't want any directly in the corners per se. I've got some labels ready to go. All of these I'm going to print out and put something over top of it because I find that it's worth it, and then I can keep it with the plant throughout the season. If you just write it on, it fades like that by the end of the year, and it's at the bottom of your tomato plant and you're like, what is this? I forget the variety. So there you go. So these are some nodding wild onions from the seed library, and I'm going to do a whole thing of these and see how those turn out and divide them up if I have to in the spraying outside. They're going to go in this guy right here. I sprinkled about 10 or 12 on there. I'm actually going to use this very faded one and put nodding O on here. I just sprinkled them on. There's a little bit of texture there so that they're kind of falling underneath. They're black, so I cannot really see them at all against the difference of the soil here. But then I have some peat moss. I'm just gonna dry peat moss, starting medium, that I'm just gonna sprinkle on top just to cover it a little bit. And the color is so different that I know I've already worked on this. I've done that before where I didn't mark that I had actually planted in a row of seedlings and then planted something completely else over top of them, and it just didn't realize it was a slow germinating thing. So I ended up with like 2 vegetables in one container. Not ideal. The other onions I'm going to start, I might actually do 2 of these and then just do some leeks. I don't know. Maybe one of these, 2 leeks. Because I really would like a long row of leeks. Okay, these look identical to the wild onion seeds. They're just maybe a little bit bigger. I'm going to put them here. Red Basano onions. Again, I think I'm going to put a little bit more densely in here because I'm going to split these up. So maybe about 20 seeds, about 20 of these onions. There's the picture of it. You can get these from the grocery store. They actually, I love these packs from Burton, and there's an Italian brand as well, like this. They look like this, big packets, ton of seeds in there. I love it. Maybe you pay $1 more, but you get like 4 times the seeds. So if you want to start a lot of onions, great. Okay, I'm gonna write Basano O. Hopefully I can understand my lingo here. Putting those in pretty deep, sprinkling a bit of dry add on. We want them close enough to the surface that they don't struggle from deep down and never make it to the surface before they rot if it's moist in there. That's kind of the purpose of a lot of these seedlings. Whereas like if you plant a pumpkin seed too high to the surface, it just pokes out and falls over because it's not deep enough down to create that like root ball. I'm gonna do these leeks. This is kind of funky. I don't think I've had one that's like crooked like that. Not very many seeds, so I think I'm gonna go for it and put them all in here. Again, they look identical, maybe a little bit more round compared to those Basano onions. Yeah, I'm just gonna put them all in and divide these up. You can also get a small tray and treat it like a tiny plot, put the whole thing full of soil and plant in little rows and then split it up. same concept as planting the lettuce in a larger container and then splitting it up later on. So those are planted. I'm gonna keep my seed bag or little card here. I'm not gonna throw it out because I'm gonna save it just to remember the name and the variety and where I got them from. Megaton, they're a hybrid, organic, hybrid leeks. So I'm excited to see what those turn out like. Okay. And for now, I'm just gonna go leek. The way that I do it on my computer without having any kind of fancy technology or anything like that is I get the clear address labels for your printer, if you have a printer, from Staples, Avery, I think they're by, like they're clear. Print in black, the name in the middle. And what I do is I wrap, I think I talked about this last time, but I wrap a little bit of white duct tape on the one side, put that on top, and then I use some packing tape to kind of encapsulate the whole top. And this lasts for years. So yeah, I don't think I have any Violet Sparkle, this is what this is backwards, seeds. But if I did, I would just reuse this label, give it a quick clean on the bottom, make sure there's no pathogens on this part. Yeah, so usually I just give them the whole wipe down with acetone or nail polish remover. Okay, so leeks, we've got 2 types of onions started here. We're not gonna do parsnips, but that's something you could start now. You can start cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower. Those take a very long time. The main reason you're starting things indoors is to get a head start on the season. Some plants take almost over 100 days, and our season is only 150 days. So, you know, it's a good idea to start early if you can, give them that jump start so that you're not lagging behind, especially if we get an early frost. It's really devastating when things aren't ready. The whole benefit with starting peppers, for example, and we're gonna, it's a slightly longer live stream today, but we'll get there. The reason that I'm starting the peppers this way is because, you know, peppers, once they get to a certain age, they just keep producing and producing and producing. So we want to get as much of a head start on producing our peppers as possible. I like to cut them in half so that they bunch up. You get a higher yield. So that being said, we're going to do that. I didn't fill up that last square. Let's see, we've got 1 viewer. Oh, Thurza has joined us. So parsley or thyme, what should we start? Have a vote. I'm down for either one. I'm kind of keen to do this old parsley seed, so that's what we're gonna do. All right. Good. Again, I'm being pretty liberal in that little, you can actually tell that they're in there. Not really. Not really on camera, but there we go. I'm gonna put some dry peat seed starter on top just to lightly cover them. And then the label. Boom. We've got 4 started on the end, and they can be like this for a couple of weeks. So parsley, darn it. Okay, well, we'll start some parsley in another container then. Okay, we'll do parsley. Oh, I did do parsley. Good. I'm gonna do some thyme on the side. I've got room for 2 more containers, so let's do it. But I really like this technique of starting them, even if you are starting your stuff maybe 2-4 weeks before frost, so in April. Oh, these are like super tiny, these thyme seeds. Thyme needs light to germinate, so I am just leaving it on the surface, and I'm gonna really make it light there. So thyme, it doesn't even say the variety, it's just thyme. Okay, and then we've got 1 more. We could do, I'm gonna do some, what do I have? I have so many peppers out because we're gonna do a couple peppers or 2, but I'm gonna do, maybe I didn't put out another thing. It's just a pile of peppers. Okay, well, I'm gonna revisit that in a minute when the live stream is over and put something in there just to fill the spaces. All right, So there we go. For now, I'm gonna table this and complete that after the live stream because it probably would take me a solid 20 minutes just to do that whole tray. Put that down. And now I'm gonna show you what I'm doing with my peppers. Not gonna do it for the whole rest of the live stream, but I'm just gonna show you one or two, and then maybe you guys would wanna try it this way. So I've got my cleaned and sanitized seed pack here that's recycled from last year. Like I said in the beginning, there was some flowers in here, I think. And here are the notorious pellets. Here's what they look like. I got these at the dollar store because you end up getting this many for like $1.50, and twice this many is over $11 everywhere else. So not always pro dollar store, but that's an interesting saver there. These little trays are pretty flimsy. I wouldn't trust super heavy stuff in here. There's not even any weight in here, and it's like flimsy as heck, but I'm gonna use these. And what that person did, I'm gonna have to quote them back on Backyard Caring, but what that person did was they took these and they put them inside instead of soil to start with. So we're just housing them in here. We've got the label in here. But then when they grow bigger, they either need to be divided and then you fill up with soil around them. So it's kind of like an upgrade. And peppers are pretty small, even coming up to June. So I don't think they'll need to upgrade from this size if we're starting in the pellets. The pellets are not great long term. That's why they're only going to be in the pellets for maybe 3-4 weeks maximum before they get upgraded in here. The pellets have no nutrients. They get really dry, like I said earlier. So it's important to really watch these if you're going to start your seeds. This is better for something that, like I said, you want to start in individual little sections and you want to plant directly in the garden. So lots of flowers. These are really great for like zucchini, as long as you kind of take apart that out film when you plant it so it doesn't obstruct any of the extra roots. But something that's not going to be in here for long term because the roots will, this is one with water added. They get a little bit bigger than this, but that's good for now. This one you can see like the seal is still there. So what I like to do is kind of pull them apart. It's very satisfying sound and feeling like a little ripping. And then I loosen it up a little bit, and that's what I'm going to start the seed in there, and then it's going to plunk inside. So I think I started enough. These ones are like, what you're going to do is you're going to pour some water on these and let them expand and soak up all that water, and then you're going to add a little bit more because they can always take a little bit more, and you just want to soak them the most at first, and then from there on out, we're just maintaining. So these ones are nice and wet. I want to make sure that every single one is opened up at the top. I mean, that's pretty far down, but that's what she did. I guess the light's gonna have to come down really close. You know what? I might have to start these like outside of this because that's really low down there. A little bit too low for my liking. So instead of just plumping them down in there, I'm gonna come back to these super wet ones. Drain them into the other because there's still quite a bit of water in here. I'm gonna trade off on some water. Once they're kind of puffed up like this, they take water really well, and that's what we want. At first, that's what we want. I did bring it in here. I thought I did, but sometimes with my peppers, what I'll do is I'll take an old ice cube tray, and I will go row A, row B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I will do a little chart so I know which one is which, and I will put the seeds that I'm going to start in there underwater to do a soak for about 12 hours maximum. Somewhere around 10 hours is perfectly fine, maybe 6, 4 even. Just gives them a little bit of a head start in terms of germinating, but these are so wet, like I just squeeze it and it's water coming out, so that's perfect to start. We've got the heat mat up here installed and ready to go, already warm. So as soon as these go on, and I put some kind of cover, greenhouse cover on top of here, it could be glass. I think that's what I might do because I have to lower that quite a bit. But yeah, lower the glass, and it'll start to warm up, and I should see seedlings before next week. If you don't do this, it'll take way longer. When you don't do that kind of wet period with a little greenhouse dome or something to keep the warmth in or the moisture in at first, you risk them seedlings drying out halfway when like the shell's trying to peel off, and that's where you get disaster, where everything germinated but didn't really come through. They need that strength to pop right through the soil and, you know, spread their little leaves. So I am gonna do midnight pepper. I feel pretty confident that upside down. I've stored these peppers really well. So I'm gonna start just 2, maybe 3 seeds in each. Oh no. Well, it'll be these 2. 2 of these seeds. These are midnight peppers. They have purple variegated foliage. Very spicy little peppers. And to help me plant, where did it go? You can use anything that you're comfortable with. But I have like this tiny little spoon that has like a little sharp edge, and I use that to kind of open things up and push seeds down. You can use like an old pen, chopstick, something like that, as your little helping tool. I'm gonna pop those 2 seeds in there. Oops. Come on. You can actually see them. Well, maybe not, the shadow facing that way, it's not great. But they're in there. I'm gonna make sure the soil's kind of closed on top of them. They're right in the middle. I'm gonna pop it down in there, I guess. Make a little temporary label. Midnight. And I know this whole tray is peppers, so it's kind of redundant for me to write pepper. I also know what the peppers look like when they sprout, so I'm not gonna waste my time with that. All right, so that's been the midnight peppers. I've got habaneros. I've got all these ones that came from Brazil, so maybe I'll do one of those. Some of those I received very limited seeds, so I'm hoping that I only need to start 1 or 2 seeds of each. Okay, variegated mutant. So I'm just gonna put VAR mutant, and I'm gonna do 2 of those. I feel like when these come up, I'm gonna know which is which, but you never know. You never know, and sometimes when you order seeds, they come up and they're not what you ordered at all, so it's important to keep that in mind. Okay. Some hot pepper seeds can also be really hot. There's some residual stuff on your hands, and you go to like rub your eye or your nose. You gotta be really careful about that. Okay. VAR mutt. And I should remember what that means. Popping it over here. And basically, I'm gonna repeat that process for every single one of my peppers that I want to start this year. Always keep the containers of what you started, like, or the little package, because you never know when you have to reference it again. There we go. So it's gonna look like that. They're gonna be deep down there, but the light is gonna get through. The light's coming from over top. It's not like I'm dealing with, you know, a setting sun and then it getting some darkness. The light will be right over top. I think they're gonna feel nice and cozy in there. And I'm gonna try this method that this person did. I think they're a British gardener, and we have pretty similar climates, so there we go. Let's see. Opening this up. Okay, all of those are prepped and ready to go. Yeah, I'm just gonna repeat that process, so that's kind of boring, but that's been the live stream for today. Kind of longer than usual, but we covered a lot. If you have any questions, feel free to comment on this video or ask me, and I will see you next week for Mapling Around with John. Next week we're gonna chat about how to tap maple trees. So if you're interested in that and an update on maybe some of these seedlings, tune in next Wednesday. Otherwise, I will see you guys next week. Bye.